Matt Lenihan Boxing Social in association with Empire Fight Store. It's Monday morning and we're kicking it off in the right way. Gareth A. Davies. Gareth, we spoke a little bit off camera, but how are we, bud? A good weekend for you. I saw the bare knuckle boxing stuff. It's been a busy one, hasn't it?
BYB Extreme, the Vale, 1,200 people, felt like 10,000. They were all in at, the doors opened at 3. They were all leaving by 9:15. It was 3 hours of mayhem between 5 and 8:30. 3.5 hours of mayhem. Brendan and his whole crew were there from the security guys from Tyson Fury.
Yeah.
They were doing the managing the place. There were 5 ejections. There was a lot of Cardiff and Swansea in there. Ooh. There was 5 ejections, not a single fight, but 11 brutal wars in the ring. I mean, one only lasted 22 seconds and it was a late replacement, but Barry Jones and LT Nelson, LT Smash Nelson, American guy, beat an undefeated Welsh guy who's considered the GOAT, the Welsh guy. But it was basically bare knuckle royalty fighting each other in the main event. Great fun. I'd urge people to watch it. I think bare knuckle is growing. I think at the moment a lot of mixed martial artists and a lot of ex-boxers are coming over to it, but I think it's going to develop a kind of a highway of its own, Matt, where people are not hybrid fighters, that they're just actually bare knuckle fighters.
You know what? A few years ago, you sort of saw a small transition. Former world champion Ishe Smith, resident of Las Vegas, he came over and he did very well out of it. Obviously, a lot of people expect boxers to do well out of it, but Paulie Malignaggi came over, I think, and fought Artem Lobov. We've sort of slowly seen it. Do you think? We may as well touch on this because I think it's something that is developing in combat sports. Do you think over the next few years we'll see more of an influx from the boxing side of people turning over and doing it? I think Dorian Darch, I think, was around the scene for a long time. He does it. What do you think we'll see that now? People crossing over to this.
Poor old Dorian Darch ended with 32 stitches in his ear Saturday night and it was a punch that glanced his ear. Paulie Malignaggi is now a commentator for this organisation in the United States.
Yeah,
with Mike Goldberg of UFC commentary fame. I do think there'll be a lot of guys crossing over. Dorian Darch, and to put him in context, I know he was stopped by them both, but he's a guy that's been in the ring with Daniel Dubois and Anthony Joshua as a pro. He's in better shape than he's ever been in. He's only 16 stone now. And he's 40, and he looks in fantastic shape. I think a lot of boxers will come over and try this. I'd love to see Dillian Whyte and Derek Chisora in a bare knuckle fight. Can you imagine?
No,
can you imagine?
I was just about to say, my next question was, if you could see two, obviously everyone wants to see the best fights in boxing, so your Fury Joshua's, but if you could see just a proper dust-up, that's the fight that comes to mind. But that would be, I don't even know if I'd want to. I think that almost could be too much. That could be too much.
They don't last long, these fights. That's the thing.
God.
In the trigon, as they call it, it's a trigon, a triangle.
Yeah.
21 foot by 21 foot. They work the angles. You're allowed to clinch in this with one arm. It doesn't last long. I mean, the title the title fights are 6 3-minute rounds. Debutantes in it can't fight more than 4 rounds.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, fights are 5 rounds. They're not long fights. Doesn't go back to the days, of the 1860s or back to the 1650s when the first records of bare knuckle began. That's the weird thing. Bare knuckle boxing began in Britain in the 1650s. So it's an ancient art. The title that Jones and Nelson were fighting over on Saturday night was the Police Gazette super middleweight title. It's an ancient title that goes way back when, but some of those guys had, fights that lasted 3 hours, and that's why they were doing all this, this kind of style came in.
Does that go back to the sort of the travelling routes of fighting, where you're seeing the fights from back in the day, where it's like basically you fight until the other one gives best kind of thing and says we can't go anymore, Is that what used to happen?
I think it goes back to the royals were involved, aristocrats were involved. I think there's a huge, deep tapestry history. Yes, obviously the Travellers have a fair fight, but I think bare knuckle fighting was the thing before. Yeah. I think it's got history, it's got tradition. I say in the Trigon, I think 9 of the 11 fights. I've got it here. I've got my cards here. I've got my notes here still. I think one fight went to points, the rest were stoppages.
Wow.
Round one. But even Jack Marshman, who's quite well known, who fought in the UFC, was a Cage Warriors champion as a mixed martial artist, had loads of boxing bouts. He was even nearly stopped by this guy called Carl Craig, who's had a lot of street fights, but was having his first bare knuckle fight. And Jack nearly got stopped by him. Jack's been out a while. Literally one jab can change everything. It's very interesting.
Yeah,
it's brutal. They invited me along to do comms. I was honoured to do comms for LT Nelson and Barry Jones. It really was a bare knuckle royalty fight, and it was brutal. I called it the Hagler Hearns of bare knuckle while I was doing commentary, because we got about 8 minutes of non-stop action. Jones was really technical in the first round, used distance, and was winning the fight. And then Nelson got him in the clinch in the corners, and they were trying to block, and it was just amazing. And he beat Jones for the first time in his career. The crowds, given that he was a Welshman, were brilliant with it, and they really do carry themselves very well. And I always find that interesting, that these guys who are real warriors are real gentlemen with each other as well, all in the fight hotel together. People, you know what it's like. It's brilliant.
Yeah, that's good. It's good to see a different side of obviously the combat world and see how this grows. 100%. I suppose from the boxing world, the one thing I want to touch on was last night's news kind of thing, and the first sort of coming together. Well, not the first coming together, but the promotional event of Mike Tyson, Jake Paul. It's going to receive, regardless what this is numbers wherever you look from an outside looking in. Mike Tyson, legend of the game. Jake Paul, obviously doing his thing. He's beating some MMA guys coming up, and he's looking to obviously claim a bit of a scalp, and it's a big money event. What's your overall take of it? I've asked so many people this, from Peter Fury's, everyone, when you see these guys sort of coming together, and Mike Tyson, what he's done for boxing at this stage of life, is it a concern for you?
Yeah, when I saw them together and I saw the size of Jake Paul compared to Mike Tyson yesterday, and I know they were digging around and playing when Tyson hit him. His punch seemed to bounce off him, and Jake Paul seemed to push Mike and move him really, really easily.
Yeah.
I think there's a huge weight differential. Mike's not a big guy anymore. I love what he's saying, which is, you wait till I hit you, wait till I find that punch. Well, he's got to find that punch early. Yes, I am concerned. Yes, I probably will go.
Yeah.
It's Mike, and it's Jake. And we were just talking about bare knuckle there. Thank God it's gloves in a way. See, the American organization, BYB Extreme, have bought the British bare knuckle. That's why it's become such a big organization. Mike Vasquez, former NASCAR owner, has come into it. Met him at the weekend. I'm concerned. Yeah, I am. Because I think if Mike gets an injury this time, he'll go in anyway. What I don't want to see is get a beating. Jake Paul is big, likes what he's doing, enjoys it, and at the end of the day, Mike Tyson's 30 years older than him, and that's what worries me. Mike's age. It's as simple as that.
There's always a concern of safety of fighters, but I think when you look at the age difference, obviously it's been highlighted a lot more. Could you understand this with a bit more if they said, look, we're going to do head guards, we're going to do 16-ounce gloves. It's going to be maybe a minute and a
Mike
half
Tyson
rounds.
wouldn't wear head guards, Matt, and he's not going to
No,
fight.
I know he
That's
wouldn't.
Mike Tyson. You can't relegate him to that. It's the great Mike Tyson, one of the greatest boxers in history, one of the most impactful professional fighters we've ever seen, a pugilist extraordinaire, a man who some would say, given what he had growing up, it's amazing that he's here in his late 50s. He's a wonderful human being. I'm sure you've met him a few times. I've had some deep conversations with him over the time, and more recently as well in Saudi. And he's a very special human being. So just don't want to see him get hurt. It's a safety concern more than anything else. Because Jake Paul will want a dramatic visual knockout, and it really creates legacy for him.
In terms of Mike, you mentioned there all the chats you've had with him. We talk about stories in the combat world. His story, obviously, I'm sure many people are aware of it, but he shouldn't have made it past, I don't know, 20. Like really, when you think about what he's been through,
or 30, or 30.
Yeah.
It is extraordinary. People love transformational stories. He's still got a bit of the wild man in him, but he's very, very wise these days. And it's a shame that he's having to box, because obviously he's going to get several million for it. He's going to be paid very, very well, and that's what this is all about. It's a shame he hasn't got huge amounts of money, but I'm sure he's doing it for good reasons for himself, to help members of his family or to help his children. We saw that skit the other day with his daughter, where he was saying, "Show me the money." Did you see it?
I've not seen that one yet. No.
Yeah, show me the fucking money.
Oh yes, I have seen that. Seen that when they did the little prank of all the people.
He's not a 50%er, is he? He's 100%er.
Yeah.
Even it was funny because he threw himself into it, not knowing that it was a TikTok skit.
Oh God.
He'll come out throwing, and I hope he gets 2-minute rounds. I think 8-2s or 8-2s.
Yeah, I think so.
Of course, I hope he knocks Jake Paul out, but I don't think he will.
One of the rumour mills sort of going around yesterday when I put my notes together and things to talk about, we've touched on a lot of the stuff because we always do sort of a good 10-15 minutes. One of the things that were coming out of the rumour mills on several places yesterday was Terence Crawford being offered a Triple G fight in Saudi Arabia. Don't know if there's any substance to it. I've just seen it on several different things. Box Raw, I think a Box Raw put a thing up saying a rumour circulating regarding this. Gennady Golovkin's been out of the ring. I know he's come out and said, look, officially, I'm not done, kind of if I feel like it. Terence Crawford, very active. Saw his performance against Madrimov. Just what's your thoughts when you hear that? He's not been in the ring for a while now, Triple G.
Yeah, I mean, it's a kick up the arse for Canelo, for one, if they're going to do it, and they're going to do it in Riyadh season. I did see little bits and pieces. I've heard little bits and pieces about Gennady possibly doing a comeback. But couldn't that comeback be against Chris Eubank as well? Isn't that a possibility?
Well, Chris has always talked about wanting that fight. I mean, from going back, I don't want to say 10 years, but I think we're maybe even approaching 10 years since the whole famous it's going to happen and then it not happening kind of thing. I'm
hearing that Eubank's got a fight for October. I don't know who it is, and I suppose that's a possibility. I wanted to see Eubank against Canelo, but I hear that Eubank said himself that he wanted a couple of fights.
He also said he's happy to wait till May for Canelo, but I think you never know.
He might have a chance of doing it because it doesn't look like Canelo and Crawford's going to happen at the moment, even though
you never know.
You just never know with that. I mean, look, I think Crawford against Golovkin, it steps him up to middleweight, doesn't it? It's a big name. I mean, I think, by the way, and I want it on record, that I think Gennady Golovkin is a modern great at middleweight.
Without
that
doubt.
Extraordinary run where, I mean, I did write it down the other day. I think it's 18 fights in a row where he stopped opponents.
Yeah.
He's approaching, if not bettering, the great Bernard Hopkins at middleweight. What a fight that would have been between those two. And we all know, and it needs to go on record, and that was my point I was about to make, that the first fight with Canelo, he won. There's no question about it. It's a disgrace that it was a draw. And obviously he lost the last two. I thought he lost the second one marginally. And he definitely lost the third one, the trilogy fight. Again, I think he's 42 now, isn't he?
Something like 41, 42.
And on that very note about legends in their 40s, I saw the clips of Manny Pacquiao giving it everything at the weekend. Not looking too bad.
No, he does look okay, doesn't he, Manny, to a degree?
But he looked kind of relieved to get through to the end as well. Because it wasn't an exhibition. It was an absolute war. Yeah. So we do have to be a little bit careful about these guys going on and on and on. But I wouldn't argue with Crawford against Golovkin. But it's kind of, it's not fantasy matchmaking. It's matchmaking that keeps the train chugging along.
Last one from me, just touch on, we had a top rank card at the weekend where we saw the big heavyweight Makhmudov and Guido Vianello come together. Got stopped, obviously, huge swelling around the eye of Makhmudov. And we also saw a terrific performance from someone who spent a fear on calls, one of the next big stars in Abdullah Mason, producing a fine finish at the weekend. What did you make of it? Guido's on a little bit of a run now, kind of thing. It's quite a bit of a statement win.
Yeah, when Tyson Fury was training out of Las Vegas and Los Angeles, he talked very highly of Guido Vianello, and I got to know him a little bit. He's a good size, good natural size for heavyweight. He's a big boned man. Very pleased for him. Makhmudov, two fighters have got under his skin literally now. In Agit Kabayel, and I thought Vianello looked really good against him. I've only seen highlights, I haven't seen the whole bout, and obviously I've seen that huge hematoma that closed his eye and made him a one-eyed Gorgon. Yeah, which he does look like with one eye. He's an evil-looking character. He's scary looking character rather than evil. Yeah, he's a scary-looking character. I'm sure Spencer's right in the guy you mentioned. I don't really know a lot about him yet.
Yeah, he's one to, I think when you look at the young sort of the next gen coming through, we talked a bit about Kamel Moten coming out of Las Vegas. He's 17, 18. He's another terrific fighter. Abdullah
he looks like he's still at school though, doesn't
he? Yeah, he does, but he fights like he's a fully grown fledged man. Like he's a good fighter under the Mayweather gym. But yeah, Abdullah Mason, 15 fights, 13 KOs, 20 years of age. I know obviously they're going to have harder fights, but it's ones to look out for moving forward. But yeah, look, appreciate you jumping on as always, Gareth. I know
always a pleasure. Bang on time. Just got my guests coming now.
I know you got a lot of work happening. We'll catch up soon anyway. Thank you for jumping on.
Always a pleasure.